Hey, everybody, welcome back to the SCB Steelers Podcast presented by Deck Roofing Incorporated of South Florida. We are, as always, very pleased to be part of the Variety Sports Network, and I am coming from the Bradshaw Bourbon Studio. And, ladies and gentlemen, I have my Bradshaw Bourbon. Delicious. You'll notice that Ben is not currently up on the screen. All we know is he had a prior engagement. He did not say what it was. We did not press him. I'm only going to assume there is some form of alcohol involved with it, and we'll just leave it at that. And if he chooses to comment on it, then he will. And I have every expectation he's going to show up in the chat at some point tonight.
1,000,000%.
Yeah, I can see it coming. He was bitching earlier this week that he can't put like GIFs in there and he can't put other things in there. So I have every expectation that he will show. Ian, I have no idea where Ian is. He's been hyping this show all week and now he's not even here. So Scarps and I will be more than capable of handling this until he shows up. That's for damn sure. And welcome everybody. I see Chris is in, Aaron, George, Claude. Great to have you guys. And we know some of you that maybe aren't in the chat and watching live. Hello to you guys. Thanks so much. And obviously to everybody who listens and watches on your own time. Thank you so much for doing so. The Steelers are in action. It is gruesome twosome. You got that right, Chris. It is a great time of year. I love summer. I really do. But I also love when the Steelers report to Latrobe for training camp. And it's just a great, great time of year. And I'm very happy to report after one day, everybody's healthy. We maybe had a reserve tight end, Rodney Williams, might have gotten a little overwhelmed by the heat, which is understandable, but that's not bad. That's not bad. Now, Scarps, you and I were talking before the show. You do not miss a lot of things about camp in Latrobe. But you also admit it. There's this little piece of you that, kind of get a little inkling of excitement when you see everybody start reporting. You remember those days. How are you feeling today after first couple of days of seeing the players arrive and then getting a practice in?
I mean, it was what do the kids say in my feels? Yeah. I would say that one, I'm old because I don't recognize many of the players that are there. I think Cam and Boz are the only two I ever worked with, so I'm old.
So they're the only two left from your time there?
TJ was there, but I'd only worked with him for a couple months.
Okay.
And you're right. It definitely holds some great memories. I don't miss the heat. I don't miss the 30,000 steps and the miles put on. But it was like going back to college again.
Did you routinely drop weight during the 3 weeks you were out there?
Yeah, I usually came home the same amount of weight because I partake in some beverages every night, but I didn't feel so bad because I got the steps in. But yeah, I mean, when I graduated college, I got the internship, so I never missed the summer of going back to college. And you live in a dorm room, and it's like an abbreviated semester. It's a month. But yeah, I mean, it's hard to describe.
Mm-hmm.
Steelers fans, if you've been there, there's the drive up, the anticipation, there's the smell of the fresh cut grass. You walk out, you go grab a protein shake or whatever to help cure the hangover, and you look over and you see the mountains, and if you could see the mountains, that meant that it probably was going to be a good day. It wasn't going to be too humid. But if you couldn't see the mountains, oh boy, throw some extra baby powder and deodorant on, and get on with your day.
Oh, yeah, it's almost better for the players, and I know all of them would give me this look like, man, you're nuts. But what I mean is, they expect to be sweating. so they're going to be smelly and sweaty and all those things. Whereas you guys, you're running around trying to do the PR, hook up the interviews, do all this kind of stuff. And you're wearing usually a nice pair of shorts, nice golf shirt, something like that. And you're just soaked right through it. And so, yeah, I get the uncomfortable nature.
I would say though, that's actually a good point, because at camp, we could wear like gym shorts and gym shirts. That was really nice to like be able to dress down, because
definitely
90% of the time it was always shirt and tie. But
yeah,
for OTAs and mini camp, you could wear like slacks and a polo, but only once or twice during camp. We called it Investors Day. That's what all the ownership group would be up there. So then you'd pull out the khaki shorts and golf shirt for those special occasions.
So the Thomas Tulls of the world would show up.
Yes, the Thomas Tulls, the Citroens, the Pauls.
Yeah,
I'm going as I go through the Steelers ownership group in my mind right now. But yes.
Right. Well,
hello, Ian.
Ian, welcome.
Fashionably late. I'm sorry.
Fashionably late. Totally fine. Welcome in, and good to see you with an alcoholic beverage there.
It is.
We're just talking a little bit about some of Scarp's fond memories of sweating himself to death and all that stuff.
Yes.
And Claude brings up an excellent point here. Scarps, if you need like a ghost writer or something, I would be more than happy to jump in there for you and help you write that. I think it's a great idea. I can only imagine.
I've thought about it many times.
The only thing is, I would say this though, yours would be better as an audiobook, so you could narrate and do all the voices, because you do, obviously you do AB and Troy and I mean so many of the guys, and it's very, very funny. That would be great. I just from my own personal standpoint, but
ask and ye shall receive, right? Believe me, I've thought about it. I'd have to first I'd have to like actually sit down and like write down like the stories that I have, so I don't miss them. Like it'd be like a lengthy discovery process, but
for sure.
I'd love to do it. But until then, I just share them on the SCB Blitz podcast,
and we love it. We're more than happy to have it. Anyway, Ian, hopefully everything's going all right. Do you also have that little like tinge that says football season is here?
It's almost here. We're still at like football in shorts. Once they put the pads on and start, actually hitting each other, and you hear the pads clacking, that's when it's really back. So we're almost there. But
absolutely,
it's good to be back. We survived. A few weeks ago on the show, I said we've now entered the period of the year where there's no good news that can come out. The only good news is like a contract extension. Other than that, any news about the team is usually bad news. We have survived that period. No one got arrested. No one had any weird off-season injuries other than TJ Watt falling in his pool, which was injury-free.
Thankfully, injury-free.
Yeah. So we survived the off-season. We've gotten to camp with everyone healthy and no one got arrested. So cheers to that.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And I mentioned right at the top, cheers to the fact that everybody passed their conditioning test. We did not have any winners of the Casey Hampton Award. And everybody pretty much healthy after a day of running around in their underoos.
Which can't be said for other teams. I mean, Joe Burrow got a calf injury today. Jalen Ramsey has to get his knee scoped out.
Yeah.
Things happen and as soon as you start running around. So
it absolutely does. You ramp it up a little bit and Joe Burrow, I don't want Joe Burrow to miss time. I want to play the Bengals when they're at full strength. I don't want to hear the excuses.
Yeah. Stuff. You definitely don't want to play them when Ryan Finley's starting.
No, because he's like 1-0 as a starter against us, I think. So, just real quick before I'm sorry. Scarps, go ahead.
Oh, no, the guy from the Lions, C.J. Gardner-Johnson.
He escaped. He came pretty clean, I guess. It's just a sprain of sorts, and
I often wonder too, these, sort of these non-contact injuries. I feel like they're up in recent years. I don't know. I'd the NFL usually does a case study at every owners meetings. They'll or maybe it's not owners meetings, but they do like a yearly health report, and they're like, here's how many ACLs got blown out. Here's here's the injuries and what happened. And I don't know if they have a category for non-contact, but I'd be interested in seeing the data regarding that.
I think they do now. And I'll just say this real quick, that many of you guys are aware of the great Major League Baseball pitcher John Smoltz. And he does play-by-play or color for one of the networks. He has talked for years about the fact that he thinks there are so many of these injuries because we have invested so much into specialization of these athletes. And he talks mostly on the baseball side of it, where he talks about pitchers and the fact that, these kids get noticed. Oh, this kid's going to throw in the 90s, so we're going to make sure that he only plays baseball for the rest of his athletic career. And he just believes the arms in that case are just being overused. They don't get a chance to throw that different motion like you would with a football.
Yeah, you get the repetitive motion injuries.
Exactly. And so he started, I've seen him do some discussions where it's kind of transferring over to other sports because they're seeing those soft tissue injuries, the non-contact injuries. And I'm not saying that Smoltz is right per se, but as an old-time athlete who played multiple sports, I kind of agree, and it's just crazy how many of these guys do go down without getting touched in some cases.
I'm going to slightly disagree with you there.
Yeah, so, and that's fine. Yeah,
I think there's to me, if you are exceptionally gifted in one sport, I feel like there's a realm of other sports that are probably relatively safe for you to play, like football and track, or in high school, like football and wrestling go very well together. Like kids that I've seen that get drawn out of wrestling programs and start playing high school football usually do very well. Football and track for your skill position players go together very well. That said, and maybe not so much for high school kids, but I always get terrified when I see NFL players playing basketball in the off season, because that's one sport where there's so many weird, random injuries that can happen from, like, you just jump and land on another guy's shoe and twist your ankle. Or was it Terrell Suggs blew out his Achilles playing basketball? And weird, like, knee and leg and foot. Like, there's just so many weird injuries that can happen playing basketball. Like, if you're an NFL player, I know it's tempting, but, like, maybe don't play basketball in the off season.
If you want, play horse with your kid, but no jumping. Just set shots, man. Set shots. No, I get that. I look, for every Tiger Woods should just have always stuck to golf as he did, and there's no doubt about it. Whereas some of these guys, maybe some multiple sports is good. But okay, so camp is underway. Mike Tomlin, and this is what I love about Tomlin. Him and depth charts, they go together like oil and water. So just real quick, the starting offense today was pretty much as advertised when it went out to do some work. And it was no surprise that Broderick Jones was not running with the ones. He was behind Dan Moore. And then the other big one was that Minkah Fitzpatrick was not really running with the ones on D. He was more kind of like standing way back in center field, if you will, kind of watching. And Tomlin immediately is like, look, the way I feel about this stuff. What you see today is not going to happen tomorrow and everything else. And those are important things to talk about, because a lot of our listeners are very well educated. They know these types of things, but some common fans don't understand that you might give a guy a day off. You might tell a guy, hey, why don't you stand back and watch rather than participate? And they just don't get that. I assume Scarp said something you probably had to deal with from time to time. Questions, hey, so-and-so hurt because I didn't see him going with the ones today.
Yeah, and, especially now, like the whole landscape of communication has changed, right? When I first started there, Ed Bouchette, Allen Robinson.
Godfather.
Allen Robinson, we'll stay in RIP Stan, but like when I first started there, like there were like long tenured reporters there.
Yeah.
And very rarely did you have sort of like a younger guy. And if there was a younger person, it was usually an intern. But there are so many different ways that you can cover the Steelers now.
Yeah.
And I don't necessarily think, people are always like, why would you? I hate Steelers Twitter gets a little, be like, why would you ask that? Well, I mean, it's relevant. Is Minka hurt? Is that why he's not practicing?
Right.
Maybe he is. And that's the thing. You don't have to do an injury report until the regular season.
Right.
So
great point.
And this happened many times, I would know that a player wasn't 100%, but Tomlin's not going to say anything. But like, I appreciate people that ask it. But yes, even the best in the business would ask the occasional question where I was just like, oh, Jesus, like, come on, like, like you've been here long enough to know that, like, but I know I've said this on the show. What those depth charts that get published, when I was there, I would give my best guess, and like usually Mike would just be like, yeah, it's fine, and he'd laugh. But there every once in a while he would be like, you know what? Let's put these guys as co-starters and see what happens. And I'm like, all right, whatever, fine. I'm trying to think of who's the co-starter. I'll see if I can remember it.
There were some running backs once, I think.
Running backs or receivers that were, because I thought,
yeah.
And I just remember being like, oh shit, like they're like the media is gonna definitely, and literally as soon as we announced it, like somebody tweeted like, oh, we got an either or starter at this position. I was like, oh my God.
What a ride.
That's what I said. Mike, like you might not see it, but Mike T has a personality, and
for sure.
And I think you do see it though, because what was his Tomlinism this week? I'm always at 10, or I'm always at a 10 or whatever. And as soon as I saw that, I was just like, that is so Mike.
And he had on his 2 dogs, 1 bone shirt. And he's so fond of saying.
It was amazing.
Yeah. I want to address something in the comments real quick, because some of the guys are talking about it. Chase Young, that conversation has started to pop up again about, is he going to be traded from the Washington Commanders Football Club or something like that. I mean, what would you give up for him?
I mean, we just signed Alex Highsmith to a massive contract.
Exactly.
The only way I see us trading for Chase Young this year is if TJ Watt or Alex Highsmith gets hurt. That's the only way. And we signed what's his name? Marcus Golden.
Yes.
To be our number 3. And he's actually a really good pass rusher too. Like he can be a very good situational pass rusher for us. So I think the Chase Young thing was more of if an Alex Highsmith deal doesn't get done, maybe let's see if we can bring this guy in. But the way they are right now, I mean, I'd have a hard time seeing them bringing him in.
I mean, I'm of the mind that you never say never.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Well, and the other thing too is, I mean, he's a damn good player. He's a really darn good player.
He's had health problems. He just can't stay healthy. You know?
I mean, and considering what our depth chart is, maybe you do a conditional pick based on how his playing time or something like that.
Right.
But, if he gets so many snaps or so many games, it escalates to a higher pick, something along those lines. But I have a hard time seeing the Steelers do that, given the depth chart, given the fact they just signed Highsmith.
I think that's kind of the important piece there is the Highsmith thing. If he was still hanging out there, then I would say, maybe it's much more likely. But Scarps, do you see anything different there?
No, and I, again, we just talked about the whole landscape of communication. Some rando tweeted that like, oh, the Steelers are going to trade for him, and then you know how that goes.
Oh man, it's like wildfire.
And I mean, yeah, Ian, you're right. He's a great player. He's battled injuries. No disrespect to Cam Hayward, but Chase Young would probably be your best defensive lineman if you were to acquire him. And I say that because Cam is getting a little long in the tooth.
At some point, it's going to end.
It's good, I'm just being honest. So, but I think I know Omar has done things a little bit differently. He's been a little bit more aggressive, but I don't see this as like a trading for a Minkah Fitzpatrick kind of thing. I think that was like a very unique opportunity that the Steelers had, and obviously that paid off well for them.
Mm-hmm.
But I do not see them making a move like this.
I'm going to say I don't either. It's fun to talk about, for sure. As you said, one of the randos puts it out there. Speaking of Omar Khan, I thought he was really honest today. He spoke to the media, and he almost kind of said, I hope I'm doing all the right things. And you don't hear guys in leadership positions like that say that kind of thing. And me personally, I kind of appreciated it. I mean, he wants to do right by us, the fans. He wants to do right, obviously, by the team and the Roonies and everybody else. So I appreciated his comments today in that regard. And then Ian, another thing you guys were picking up on today, I know, was it yesterday? I can't remember. It
was interviews from yesterday that I was talking about today on Slack.
Yeah. And just the way that the Steelers, not just the players, but some of the coaches, Omar Khan. I mean, what is it you picked up on?
Yeah, so going back to the interviews Omar Khan did after the draft, a lot of people were asking, "Oh, you're so aggressive," and a lot of times his answer was, "I don't know if I'm aggressive. I'm just trying to win a Super Bowl." And at the time, I was kind of like, "That's kind of the attitude I want my general manager to have. Like, go for it, try and win a Super Bowl, and if it works, awesome. And if it doesn't work, then but that's the goal in mind, right?" And Omar's kind of had that mentality and voiced that multiple times throughout the offseason. And then I hear Alex Highsmith yesterday. First, like TJ Watt says, I'd like to win a playoff game. I've never won a playoff game since I've been here. And then so the reporters turn around and ask Alex Highsmith the same thing. And he's like, "Look, man, we're just trying to win a Super Bowl. The goal's winning a Super Bowl." And I was like, huh. He said pretty much the same thing Omar Khan said. And then Kenny Pickett's interview with Dale Lawley on Steelers.com, Lawley asked Kenny Pickett what his goals were for this year. And Kenny Pickett said winning a Super Bowl. And now we can digress and talk about whether that's a realistic goal or one you want to talk about. But the message coming through from the players right now is their goal is winning a Super Bowl. And that's exactly what I want to hear out of a Pittsburgh Steelers team at this time of the year. Like, whether or not that's a realistic goal with the talent they have in the room, that's where their mindset should be. And that's what they should be focused on, is winning a Super Bowl. And it seems like that message has kind of trickled down from the top, from Omar Khan talking after the draft of, "Hey, every move I make, I'm making it with trying to win a Super Bowl in mind. I'm trying to make this team better so we can compete and win a Super Bowl." And, now you've got two players, one that just got signed to a big contract and one who's going to be your starting quarterback, saying, "Hey, we're here to win a Super Bowl." And actually, if people haven't heard Pickett's interview, I'd recommend listening to it, because it was really good. I mean, he said everything you want to start a quarterback to say, right? He was humble about it. He's like, I understand the pressure that comes with the job, and I'm the guy in the spotlight now, and Lawley even asked him, "Do you set like reasonable goals for yourself, or do you set like high reach goals that you might not be able to achieve?" And Kenny was like, "I always set the reach goals, because what's a goal if it's not something you want to reach and strive for? If it's something easy, then it's not really a goal."
I mean, can you imagine what the reaction would have been if Highsmith or Watt or Kenny Pickett would have said, I just hope we're a little better than we were last year.
Right. And the comparison to me was, I saw it tweeted this morning, because Justin Herbert just signed that big deal.
Yeah.
Herbert did an interview, and somebody asked him about his goals, and he was like, "Yeah, we need to throw the ball downfield more this year, because we've got guys that are talented that can make plays down the field, and we can't miss those opportunities." And listening to that versus listening to Kenny Pickett, who is much less talented than Justin Herbert and has much less talent around him than Justin Herbert does, say, "My goal is to win a Super Bowl." Like, to me, that's more of an organizational mindset, that like the Steelers organization is always and should always be focused on winning championships, whereas the Chargers organization is like, let's put up some points and see what happens.
Yeah. I don't know. Go ahead, Skirps.
I did see, I agree. I saw the snippet you talked about. I would have maybe there was more to that answer that didn't get, that did get published or whatever, that Herbert said that. But yeah, I will say this about Pickett, and I'm not a hater. I'm a little bit skeptical, but actually, Ben, are you listening? Ben, are you watching Mr. Benjamin?
He's out there
Mr.
somewhere.
Benjamin?
He can't not be a part of it.
Benjamin gave me some advice today and said, you're not a pessimist. You're a little skeptical. So Benjamin, if you're listening, thank you. We miss you dearly. We'll welcome you back with open arms soon. Kenny, the one thing I do, and I told you guys this we talk a lot on our chat. Kenny obviously played at the University of Pittsburgh.
You almost did that in the Casey voice, didn't you?
I almost went there later on. But Kenny's PR person at Pitt was EJ Borghetti, who's one of the best in the business. So Kenny is never going to say the wrong thing. And obviously Kenny goes to the Steelers, who have a great PR staff. And the Steelers PR guy worked for EJ at Pitt and then went to the Steelers. So Kenny's never going to say the wrong thing. And getting back to Highsmith, yes. And then Omar, yes. TJ, I'll give him a pass because he's an amazing player, and I don't think he probably meant it like that. But for somebody like TJ, I agree. He got here in 2017. They were 13-3. Obviously, the Ryan Shazier injury really hurt this team. But think about the Watts, right? Sorry, Derek, but think about TJ and JJ Watt. And just the fire that they play with. And yeah, as Ben always says, he goes a million miles an hour. And the Texans have more playoff wins than the Steelers do over the last 12 years. And TJ Watt was part of that. And I'm sorry, JJ Watt was part of that. Yeah. And I sit there and think man, TJ is an all Pro Bowler every year, Defensive Player of the Year award candidate every year. He's won one of them, and he's never won a playoff game. And I think at some point, I know it's a team game, but you have to think about what your legacy is, right? Well, and could you imagine? that? Think about the greatest defensive players of all time, and if TJ keeps going on this, sorry, Big Ben's Burger, but if TJ keeps trajecting this way, and yet the Steelers have nothing to show for it, that matters. Matters. It's always Marino never won the big one. Amazing numbers. I mean, he's still a Hall of Famer, but that's always the knock. You don't want to be in that category.
It's gotta hurt though. Deep down, when you walk in that building every day and you see these legends who have won many playoff games, and you're year 7, and it's I haven't won one yet.
And yeah, you know what? The offense sucked in those games, but the last 3 playoff games, they've given up 42 plus points, and that really has to sting.
Yes.
But I getting back to your point, Ian. Long, when I first started there, I remember Art used to say this all the time. The goal is to first win the division.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And you win the division and you get a bye. So you get home field.
Which is even harder now.
Even harder now.
Yep.
But back then it was because the 2 also got a bye.
Yeah.
With a different format. And then you win a Super Bowl. So there was layers to this, right? There was yes, yes, yes. So the fact that they're talking about, winning a Super Bowl and I agree. Is that attainable? I don't think so this year. I think that they're setting themselves up for a run next year. It's kind of I don't know if anybody, but it's kind of like the Pirates. You're always looking towards next season or the season after, but the Steelers are much better historically. But, this is not the year,
right.
But that type of attitude is what I believe they've been missing over the past 5, 6, 7 years, even though they've had people in the building that have won things, but that doesn't always matter.
Yeah. No, I agree, and it's going to be fascinating to see, what happens with his career down the line. And we talked about Cam Hayward in that regard a little bit last week too. Just a quick reminder that we are presented by Deck Roofing Incorporated of South Florida and part of the Variety Sports Network, and of course the show originating from the Bradshaw Bourbon Studio. Hey, quick shout out to a friend of ours too, Dane. Many of you guys know Dane on Twitter. Dane is just an outstanding human being, great guy. I've had the opportunity to break beers, not so much bread, liquid bread with him several times. Last time I saw him, my son and I were there for a game. What was it, Jets game? Kenny Pickett's debut.
Mm-hmm.
And we just happened to bump into each other on the sidewalk. It was awesome. And he just had some surgery, and it has been really open about his procedure and everything else. So, follow him on Twitter. He's at You Are Under Arrest, which gives you an idea what he does for a living, perhaps. But best wishes going out to him. Position battles. And I'm going to start out with a real random one here. And maybe I'm wrong. I think the punting position is going to be a big, big battle, and I think Presley Harvin's in trouble. Ian?
Yes. I mean, they signed a veteran punter that they brought in. I mean,
Right.
you always want to. They always have 2 kickers, 2 punters, 2 long snappers in camp, anyways. But there's a big difference between like signing some undrafted free agent, random scrub off the street, versus signing like a veteran punter who's been in the league or a veteran kicker who's been in the league to come in and compete. So they signed a veteran punter who's been in the league. So yeah, I agree. The special teams battles are always those fun, like under the radar ones, but they're also the ones you can get a really good gauge on in the preseason for the most part. The exception being that, what's his name? Not Brad Wing, the guy we had after him.
Barry.
Jordan Barry. Yeah, the other Aussie. Barry was a great kicker when it was warm out. So he looked awesome in the preseason. And then when the weather got cold, he stunk. But you can't gauge that in August. So for the most part, you can see a punting battle kind of play out. The other thing I'll mention with the punting battle, which is something that the Steelers really like in their punters, is directional punting.
Mm-hmm.
So don't just look at distances. Don't just look at like balls down to inside the 20. They really like their punters to be able to like angle towards the sidelines and pin guys against the sidelines. So watch out for that directional punting, because that's something that Tomlin talks about a lot.
The young man that's been brought in, his name is Braden Mann. I believe he's from Texas A&M. He punted for the Jets for 3 years. He's got over 200 punts in the NFL. His average last year was about 4 yards more than Harvin. However, Harvin was a little better at inside the 20 in terms of that. So if you're, into that kind of thing, but I think that's going to be a heated contest for a lot of the reasons that Ian talked about. And look, Harvin, the Steelers like to give the benefit of the doubt to players they've drafted.
Mm-hmm.
They just have always done that. And so therefore, starting out, advantage Harvin, but I don't know how long that happens, because when's the last time he hit a big, big kick that literally flipped the field for the Steelers? It didn't happen very often.
No, he's extremely inconsistent. And the other thing, did you see the Steelers? I think they tweeted it. They posted it on their TikTok, which I don't have a TikTok, but I saw someone repost it.
The Steelers have a TikTok?
Yeah.
I'm too old for that shit.
I saw it reposted on Twitter, but it was, Tomlin like giving a speech in the locker room before camp, whatever.
Yeah.
Basically talking about, that players in this business, it's highly competitive and you always need to be ascending. You always need to be getting better. Even the veterans need to be working on getting better. And the one thing that stood out to me that he said in particular was, sorry, I'm laughing at all these comments about I don't have a TikTok, because I don't. But
Aaron's like 12, so I know he's got one.
Yeah. At any rate, the one thing Tomlin said that stood out was, mistakes we may have tolerated last year, we will not tolerate this year. If you were a rookie and made rookie mistakes, you better grow out of those quickly. And like, you know,
Oh.
a couple guys like Kenny Pickett, Jalen Warren, you know, a couple of those guys like immediately popped to mind. But Harvin's kind of in that category too, that it was like, hey, they've made, you know, these guys keep like making what I would call rookie mistakes. And
Great point.
Yeah. I'll see if I can
I
find
think,
that.
well, but
video.
I think us as fans, we see that kind of thing. It's like the old definition of insanity. I mean, how many times last season did we come on this show and we talked about, oh, geez, this guy did the same thing he's been doing for weeks, you know, and maybe Mike Tomlin's, you know, recognizing that. I don't know. What do you think, Scarbs? You think there's an actual battle here, or do you think it's all a bunch of nothing and Harvin's just going to walk in with the job?
No, you know, in the grand scheme of things, it might not seem like a big deal, but go back and look. They've had 2 kickers and 2 punters every camp for a long, long time. You know, Matthew Wright is a recent guy that has seen action around the league.
Yep.
Even way back when, remember Swayze Waters, the kicker? Remember that name?
God,
This dude was like 7 for 7 or 8 for 8 in the preseason because I think it was Sean Sweezum. I think it was Sweezum. It was either Sweezum or Boz. They just didn't want him to kick. Like they were just like, yeah, you're fine. But I you know, and I can't remember who beat.
Can you imagine the shirts we could have done with Swayze Waters? Oh man.
Oh man, I mean, I called him Patrick Swayze, but that's
exactly
Roadhouse. R.I.P. Neither here nor there. But there was one year, and he didn't get the job, but I remember we brought in a veteran punter, which was the worst thing ever because it had the longest bio. But it was Brian Moorman, long time Buffalo Bills
punter. The Saints for a while too, right?
Yep.
Yeah. Well, he brought him in, and I can't remember who he was competing against. It might have been Barry. I'd have to look it up, but
that sounds right.
But all I remember was as soon as we signed Brian Moorman, I remember thinking, like, sorry, Jordan, like, you're a great guy, but see you later. And Brian Moorman just couldn't had no hang time whatsoever.
Just couldn't do it.
And I remember being like, wow, like this dude has been so legit for so long. And like, I don't know what it was. So no, I don't think that Presley Harvin, I almost said Percy Harvin, Presley Harvin III, has the job wrapped up.
We thought the same thing about Colquitt. You know, when Dustin Colquitt came, we thought, he's just going to run away. And it, you know, didn't happen.
Big Ben's burner. Barry did pretty good in Minnesota, but he that was like
kicking
2 years
indoors.
Ago.
He didn't have to kick outside in the wintertime.
He had a good career in Minnesota, but he was not their punter last year, or he at least got cut during the season. He's not their punter anymore.
I don't remember, but I know he did well there for a time. I think obviously the real big position battle everybody's looking at is left tackle Dan Moore and Broderick Jones. I think we all agree it's not a matter of if, it's just a matter of when they're going to turn it over to Broderick Jones. As we all know, the Steelers start out with 3 pretty damn good pass rushers with Bosa, and you've also got Max Crosby in there and Myles Garrett. So you know, so I get it, but you know, I think Mike Tomlin's proven he's not going to be afraid to plug a guy in there if he thinks he's ready. You know, I don't know, Ian, is that one you're looking at, or are you just kind of waiting for it to bide its time?
Yeah, I mean, Broderick Jones will be the starter at some point, but I mean, I don't think they're in any rush to start him either, that you can kind of ease him into. I mean, if Dan Moore comes out and has a start to the season like Mike Adams did those first 4 games in the worst Steelers season since Ben Roethlisberger was drafted, which we won't even name. You know, I know Ryan gets flashbacks to that London game where Jared Allen just ate Mike Williams' lunch. But or Mike Adams. Sorry, Mike Adams.
Mike Adams. Yeah.
I'm sorry, Mike Adams. But at any rate, you know, if Dan Moore comes out and is just terrible, then you got to replace him. But at the same time, I mean, you know, you've got a guy in Broderick Jones that you don't want to throw him in there too soon to ruin his confidence, but you want to give him experience too. So, I mean, I could see them using him in, goal line, sixth offensive lineman, tackle eligible situations, and just to kind of get his feet wet a little bit and work his way into the starting lineup eventually by, the middle of the season. The good news is we have a guy in Dan Moore who has NFL starting experience. So it's not like we have nobody there that we're like, oh, we got to plug this rookie in and just see what happens.
Right.
But that said, I mean, Broderick Jones's potential in future is significantly higher than Dan Moore's. And they invested a first round pick in him, so he's gonna start at some point.
Was it? I think it was Marcus Golden today that was kind of singing Broderick Jones's praises a little bit already today, just talking about how quick he is, how powerful he is. And, obviously these guys are going to say negative things about their teammates, but, it's still good to hear from a veteran.
Golden's been around the league. And remember, too, we talked about this at the draft. Like, Broderick Jones is a young guy. I think he's only 21 years old. And he's got a huge upper body, but his lower body looks really slender. Like, it looks like he
looks like he skipped leg day.
Yeah, well, and like hip day, like his hips look really narrow. He's really light on his feet.
It's like a Stretch Armstrong doll.
Yeah, but pretty much. But it seems like only being 21 years old, he's got room to grow into his grown ass man body.
Yeah, well, plenty of time, and I think another position that's going to be interesting to me is who plays alongside Minkah Fitzpatrick a little bit.
I think the whole middle of the defense is fascinating to me.
It is kind of front to back.
How they rotate the linebackers. Yeah. I think Holcomb and Roberts are your starters, but then does Mark Robinson come in on like rundown situations, or does is DeMonte KZ, or is it KZ and Minkah are your starting safeties, but then like Keanu Neal comes in as like a dime backer replacing one of those linebackers in like a sort of hybrid 3 safety look, just how do they rotate all that? And then Tanner Muse is kind of in the mix, but he's mostly a special teamer, but he's got some really damn good athleticism if he can put it all together. So I think linebacker is a better position than safety for him, which is what he was at Clemson. But nevertheless, like, I think they've got some intriguing pieces there, but I'm really interested to see kind of how the rotation looks and how they all fit together. And the big issue, though, is I think, Minkah was here last year. KZ was here a little bit, but he was injured and then got suspended. And it's communication, because those guys down the middle of your defense, that's like the quarterback of your defense. And that's like who gets everybody lined up. And that's how the communication has to flow from like back to front in like getting guys lined up, getting your assignments, making check calls when the offense breaks the huddle, all that stuff. And with all these new guys, like, they got to figure out how to communicate with each other and figure out a rotation all at once. So, that's a big thing probably to work on through camp too, is just how do you communicate with each other, back to front? How does Minkah communicate? Because Minkah knows the defense, Minkah knows the calls, but do the other guys know the defense well enough? And I know to speak the same language.
And it sounds very 21st century too, but we need to know who's wearing the green dot too.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Who's getting the calls in, especially if we don't know if we have a linebacker that's going to be a 3-down guy. But real quick on that note, do you guys agree or disagree that there's a real high chance the Steelers grab another inside linebacker before preseason is over?
I don't know. I think the 4 they have of Roberts, Holcomb, Muse, and Robinson, I mean, they've essentially rebuilt that position from last year. I mean, 3 of those 4 guys are new, and the 4th guy was a rookie 6th round pick last year who didn't play till the end of the year. So I mean, I think it's okay. I don't know if it's great, but to get back to something I said earlier in the offseason, that like, I don't know if what Omar Khan is doing will work, but I like that he is trying, right? He's not sitting on, these are the guys we have in the building. We believe in them, blah, blah, blah. It's no, like, we're not re-signing Devin Bush. Miles Jack, we're ending your contract. You're out of here. Bobby Spillane, you're gone. Go fix the Raiders HVAC system after you're done with practice.
He's good at it.
He's tremendous at it.
Yeah. But they identified an area of significant weakness and took steps to address it, right?
Yeah.
Whether or not it works, we'll see, but at least they tried, right? To me, during the offseason, like, you have to at least try to address your weaknesses. We'll see if they work. So I don't know if it's a guarantee they bring someone in, but maybe they could. You never know if someone's available. And the one thing they don't have right now is like a guy who you can say, yeah, he can cover a tight end. He can cover a running back out of the backfield. They don't really have that coverage guy.
No doubt about it.
That you're like, oh, we got to play Mark Andrews twice a year, and we got to play Njoku twice a year, and we got to and if we get into the playoffs, like Travis Kelce's over there, and
George Kittle in the opener.
Yeah, and then just all the running backs that people like to throw to these days. We don't really have that at linebacker, I don't feel like, yet. The one thing we do have, though, on the flip side, is we have at least 3 guys in Roberts, Holcomb, and Robinson who love contact. We talked a lot about Devin Bush kind of olaying people and shying away from contact. These 3 guys like to hit.
Not going to see that this year.
Yeah. They're going to stick their nose in the pile and get after it. So there's that. But we don't have a coverage guy. But those guys don't grow on trees either.
They sure as hell don't. I want to hit on one more thing real quick, and then
let Scarps talk. I've talked a lot here.
Well, I do, but I also want to get to the top 50 a little bit, talk about some of your selections there, and a couple other things. But Scarps, I'm going to ask you point blank, another position. Gunnar Olszewski, does he make the team?
Oh, fuck. Probably. I tweeted this earlier today. Like, I can't wait to see the overreactions from the first practice, and it's not even in pads, but I don't know.
There's a log jam there.
And I don't know who they can trust more than him to return kickoffs and punts at this time. And I don't know what the order was. I scrolled through the Twitters to see, the fine folks, tweeting every moment, and I do appreciate their work. But yeah, it's like Gunnar Olszewski, Calvin Austin III, and I'm just like, shit, man, I don't know if I trust Calvin Austin III yet. So that and Steven Sims isn't there, Anthony Miller isn't there,
no.
No, they
Gunnar
Olszewski.
Jordan Bird came in, kid from San Diego State. He's got the most like game experience in terms of not in NFL but college punt and kick returns.
I'm. If you held a gun to my head right now, yes, Gunner's gonna make the team. Wait a minute,
right?
Gunner, whatever. Anyway,
Gunner.
Well, I said gun to my head, then Gunner.
Oh, Gunner.
I wasn't thinking about that, but and that's frustrating. Expect at least 14 jet sweeps throughout the year for him.
Oh yeah,
and
14 missed blocks as well.
Yeah,
he can't block for his life out there. I wanted to touch on Najee when he showed up at camp yesterday. He again talked about the running back situation, the market, and everything else. And the Colts owner Bob Irsay was Jim Irsay. Bob was his father, I think. He basically said, they got to stop whining about this. We agreed to this deal. A lot of people put time and effort into it. We had 6 more years. Blah blah blah. And I think there's some misinterpretation going on here. I think every single player understands that. I think
Burner, man.
Next Tyreek Hill.
I think Derrick Henry and Austin Eckler, I think all these guys understand exactly what Irsay is saying, that that yeah, the NFLPA agreed to a deal. It's going to be 6 more years, whatever. I think what they're just simply saying is, wait a minute. We're touching the ball a ton. We're supposedly these really important pieces to everybody's offense, but yet we're paid pretty much just above the kicker. And so I think that's the issue. And I'm just going to leave it at that. I mean, I don't have a problem with Irsay coming out and saying something. He's on the finance committee too as an owner, but I just
he's also on the Percocet committee in life. Oh, I'm a dick for saying that, but no,
Percocet might be the light one, buddy.
Yeah, whatever he was on. Here's what I agree with Irsay for saying that. I agree with Najee and the running backs for that, because it's a fucking business, and I don't know how many more times.
Yes,
like we have to say this to people. It is a business. And Omar today, and I sent this to you guys. Omar today had one of the better explanations about all of it. He just said, "Listen, I don't think it takes fucking a mathematician to understand that when the quarterback position is now the most valued position, and these guys are getting insane contracts, that there's another position on the roster that is impacted, and it's running back. It's obviously running back, and thanks, Aaron, appreciate you, bro. And I got nothing against Saquon Barkley, but I'm going to tell you this right now: if you're going to go on a podcast and talk about your displeasure with what happened, and you're going to join a Zoom call with your fellow running backs. Sorry, I don't know where my camera is. Your fellow running backs, and literally the fucking next day you fold. It's like, why even join? Next day. Why even join the Zoom call? And I've said this for a long time now, and I'm going to say it here: is that these guys say it's about sticking up for their fellow running backs.
Yeah.
But is it really about that, or is it about you saying, I'm the highest paid at my position, I got the most guaranteed money? Because I'm believing that it's the latter, not the former.
Yeah, I a lot to unpack there. I don't have any problem for anybody sticking up to their position.
Well, shameless plug. I wrote an article about running backs this week that everybody should check out on SteelCityBlitz.com. About the sort of current market for running backs and the potential outlook for Najee Harris's situation. Basically, I looked at the top 20 rushers, top 20 running backs in yards from the last 4 years. There's a significant drop-off after age 27. The drop-off really starts after age 26, but it's significant after age 27. After like year 6 of their career, there's a significant drop-off. And the hard thing is, and the point I understand from the Saquon Barkleys, the Josh Jacobs of the world,
right, that
you get a 4-year rookie contract, add in the 5th-year option for first-round picks, plus a 6th year on the franchise tag. Like, running backs after their 6th year aren't having a whole lot of success in this league. Like, not many of them are making the top 20 in rushing once they get to the 7th, 8th, 9th.
So therefore, Ian, shouldn't the argument kind of be like, hey, union president DeMaurice Smith, we need to address this whole 5th-year option thing, or the whole franchise tag thing, the way it works.
The franchise tag is relative to your position and how much other people at the position are getting paid. But
right.
I mean, the 5th-year option was kind of that was sort of the bone they threw in to the CBA back when they went to the guaranteed contracts deal. Because before that, remember when Sam Bradford got drafted? Sam Bradford got a bigger contract than Peyton Manning had at the time.
Yep.
And
he hadn't thrown a pass.
He had never thrown a pass in the league, and Peyton had been in the league 12 years. And it was ridiculous because rookies could negotiate their own contracts, and there weren't these guaranteed structured deals. So the 5th-year option, when they put in these structured deals, they said, okay, just for first-round picks, the team can add a 5th year on at it's at a much higher number though. The numbers are set based on where you're drafted too, and the position and all that stuff too. The franchise tag's been around forever. I think the real issue that we're seeing now is just running back longevity, that these guys are breaking down over time. And I think part of it is like they're being used less than running backs were in the past. I mean, you look back at, the Emmitt Smiths of the world that was like 30 carries a game at 2.4 yards a carry and led the league, led the league with 1,600 yards. Yeah, exactly. But I think the difference is now that defenders are faster and they're wearing lighter pads. So the speed and the impact of the collisions is much greater now than the sort of 3 yards in a cloud of dust days, right? When it was like you grind your way forward, you get kind of gang tackled, you go down. Now you've got guys
rugby scrum.
Right. Yeah. You got guys flying in from the secondary, going low at their knees, going high at their head, whatever it is. So like longevity for running backs just isn't there anymore.
Yeah.
And for Najee, it's even worse because since he stayed all 4 years at Alabama, he was already 23 his rookie year, which means, count those 4 years, right? He's 23 his rookie year, 24 last year, 25 this year, 26 the last year of his rookie deal, 27 the year of his fifth-year option, 28 if they franchise tag him. Like, he's almost 30 by the time he hits free agency.
And he knows it. He's not dumb. He knows it.
Yeah, and people want to compare Najee to Derrick Henry. I think actually the better comparable is Nick Chubb. Not saying they're similar running backs, but Chubb also came out as a 23-year-old, and Chubb signed an extension after his third year of his rookie deal. So he signed a 3-year extension, which basically covered the last year of his rookie deal plus 3 more years with the Browns. And I could see Najee pushing for that, like after this year being like, hey, I've got 1 year left. I don't want this 5th-year option. I don't want franchise tag. Like, let's talk extension. So,
and I would not do that.
Yeah.
Scarps, you beat me to it. I was just going to ask if you do that.
Because Nick Chubb is a much better player. And I know the Browns
he's explosive.
But but Nick Chubb is a much better football player. And I sent this to you guys. And I said, and this is even last year. I said, you know what? Everybody loves Najee right now until he wants to get paid, and these fans will turn on him, because because he's already saying stuff. Like, this isn't like he's already being vocal about it. And in my opinion, he hasn't really done that much in his league. And I know he's had did he have 1,000 yards last year?
Yeah, he's got 1,000 each year.
Yeah.
He's had back-to-back 1,000-yard rushing seasons. And in my opinion, that's not that big of a deal anymore because you get 17 games. But if you look at this offensive line, his rookie year and last year's so like I can see his point. And like, who doesn't want to be compensated? Who doesn't want to say, hey, I'm the highest I'm the highest paid in my profession.
Yep.
But I'll tell you this right now. There is nothing about him other than, he'll throw a guy off you.
Good stiff arm.
Good stiff arm. But everything else, he doesn't wow me. And you need to have something there. And I just don't think he has it. And I don't think the Steelers think he has it either. I really don't.
Well, is he even going to get the chance to really show it anyway? Because Jalen Warren did more than enough to demonstrate that he's capable of spelling Harris, or in some cases, maybe even getting a series or two where he's the guy. You know, I don't know.
Yeah.
The Steelers tend to like good people, and Najee's good people.
Not saying he's not.
Read my article.
Yeah,
read
Ian's article. That's at steelcityblitz.com.
Yes.
But it's good to get Ryan's perspective.
No,
too.
It's a great perspective. I get it. I mean, it's got to suck to be a running back right now because you see exactly that pattern that you guys just talked about.
And I know I'm probably too negative for the show, but I'm not going to cry because you're turning down $11 million here. I'm not. I'm just not. Like, go somewhere else with that shit, because you know what? This isn't the NBA. This isn't MLB where you get these absurd, amazing contracts. If you want to do that, then pick up a baseball bat or go dribble a basketball, because this is not how it is. And I'm not saying you can't fight for what you believe in, but like that's not how the NFL works. It's just not how it is.
Oh, it's a completely different animal. It just is. I mean,
And
as much
listen,
as the game is
listen.
different from other pro sports.
Hey Ben, if you're listening, and I'm a little buzzed.
Oh, he's
but
listening. He's
Ben,
got
if
an
you're
earpiece in
listening
wherever he
and
is.
you hate fantasy football, but if you don't think that shit's in my mind as I'm getting ready for draft day, you're fucking nuts, man. You're nuts. You want to get nuts? Let's get nuts.
Hey Ryan,
outstanding.
Here's your fantasy football tip. Over the last 4 years, there have been 45,000-yard rushers. 10 of them were 25 years old, which is the most of any age. So look for the 25-year-old running backs.
25 or less?
No, 25 even.
Just 25 even.
That look at my article. There is a graph that kind of shows the peak of like 25 is peak age for running backs.
Okay.
So just saying.
Well, we'll have to include that on a fantasy football show that Ben's not a part of, or something like that.
Yeah.
Ian, you also did.
I did.
A top 50 Steelers of the 21st century, a laborious activity that spanned, 5 different articles?
5 articles, 10 in each article.
10 in each article. And again, this was the top 50 of the 21st century.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Who came out with number 1, obviously?
Obviously, it was Ben Roethlisberger.
Ben Roethlisberger. Okay, very good. Where did you find the most difficulty in choosing? Was it the guys at the end or the guys at the beginning?
So for those that didn't read the articles, you can steelcityblitz.com. They're all there. The top 6 really fell in super easy. I mean, it was Ben, Troy, Alan Faneca, Hines Ward, TJ Watt, Cam Hayward. Like pretty easy for those 6 to kind of fall in line. You got your Hall of Famers at the top. The next couple, like James Harrison, Jerome Bettis, Antonio Brown. Harrison and AB, I docked a little bit just because of how the situations were when they left town. Bettis, given that his career kind of spanned the century divide, and I was like, top Steelers of the 21st century, like, do I only consider his career from like 2000 onward versus, obviously his whole career was a Hall of Fame career. So I kind of weighted Bettis a little lower, even though like below some non-Hall of Famers, just because of the split of the 2000 divide. Similar with Jason Gilden. Like Jason Gilden had a darn good career, retired as the Steelers' all-time sack leader, but he played 6 years before the year 2000. But after 2000, he was a 3-time Pro Bowler and 1-time first-team All-Pro. So I was like, he had a damn good after 2000 also. Gilden came in at number 22, but like Bettis and Gilden were a little bit tough of like where to put them just because of like their career kind of spanning that gap. But there weren't many guys like that. The thing that I think was the hardest for me in putting the list together was how to weight like guys who were here for a very short time, but had a really big impact. So like your Le'Veon Bells and Santonio Holmes of the world, that were here like 4 or 5 years versus guys that were here a long time and were good, but like didn't have as many accolades, right? Didn't have the All Pros, didn't have the Pro Bowl. So like your Deshae Townsends and Ramon Fosters of the world that were, Deshae Townsend I think has like the 5th most games of a Steeler ever.
I would have never guessed.
Played 183 games as a Steeler.
I would get that wrong.
Yeah. So like those guys that like had the longevity, and for Deshae, like won Super Bowls with the team. And, I'll admit, we talked about this at the outset of the show, like Steelers' goal is to win Super Bowls. So winning Super Bowls was, weighted heavier for me too. So some of those guys that won Super Bowls, that definitely bumped them up. Like Santonio Holmes, he was only here 4 years, but he was Super Bowl MVP. So that definitely bumped him up the list a bit too. And then obviously the guys that like were here and we're good, but we're injured. How do you weight them? So it was a fun little exercise. You can go back and look. I threw in Greg Warren at number 50 just for the fun of it, just to see if I got any reactions. But Greg Warren played 181 games as a Steeler. Yep. Like, he won 2 Super Bowls.
You have to include the guy.
Yeah. I mean
long snapping is. Nobody knows the long snapper until he makes a bad snap.
Yeah. Or until he's hurt and James Harrison has to long snap and
that's
over
also
the punter's head,
No shit. Real quick, I would like to mention that Ben did jump in the chat. He claims that he finally has a signal. Okay, so I'm going to go out on a limb and say he's on his annual camping retreat then.
Dave Matthews Band Camp.
Exactly. Well said, Scarps. Dave Matthews Band Camp. I love that. And yeah, he's probably being chased around by a girl who plays the flute or something like that.
That's Jethro Tull's Band Camp.
One time hard rock Grammy winner over Metallica, by the way, too.
Oh, I know.
Yeah. Oh yeah, big time, right? That exercise is great, and
it was fun. It was the off season. People can check it out. Tweet me if you disagree with me. The three guys that I had the hardest with was numbers 12 through 14 of Casey Hampton, Marquise Pouncey, and Aaron Smith. And I went back and forth on these guys. Man. And I know I even asked you guys, I was like, how do I put these guys in order? Because, Hampton and Aaron Smith both won Super Bowls. Hampton was a 5-time Pro Bowler. But then you've got, Marquise Pouncey, who has 2 first-team All-Pros, 3 second-team All-Pros, 9 Pro Bowls, which is second only to Mean Joe Green in Steelers history of number of Pro Bowls made. But he never won a Super Bowl. He never even played in one because he got hurt that year. So I was those 3 guys, at 12, 13, and 14, I was like, and that whole defense revolved around what Aaron Smith was able to do. He didn't get the stats that the guys get now, but he was so key to what that defense did from a schematic standpoint that they would not have been as good without him. So, it was. Yeah, I remember when I started one of my buddies from college, Rob, if you're listening, thank you for always reading and interacting. But he tweeted me, he was like, "Oh, I hope Aaron Smith makes the top 15." And I was like, he did, but I can't tell you that yet. But yeah, I mean, Aaron Smith was so darn good.
What about Lima Swede?
Lima Swede
came in at
was
51.
Dropped from the rankings.
51.
Oh man, what was I gonna say about? I had a thought about Pouncey, and
Pouncey probably makes the Hall of Fame eventually, just because of how decorated his career was. But they didn't do a lot in the postseason when he was here, and being a Steeler. If this was this, to go back to what I said at the beginning of the show, right, about what Pickett said versus what Justin Herbert said, if this was the San Diego / Los Angeles Chargers best players of the 21st century list, Pouncey probably would. Pouncey's brother played for them.
His brother, yes, his brother would be up there,
top 10, top 5 maybe. But for a Steeler,
what is the
Super Bowls in this time?
What I wanted to ask was, how many years do you have to be out before you can be considered for the Steelers Hall of Honor?
I think it's 3.
Okay, so it's very possible that Pouncey is looking at induction into that in the next 2 years, probably.
Possibly. They may wait for the Hall of they waited for Troy, because Troy could have gotten in sooner, but they knew he was going to get into the Hall of Fame, so they kind of waited on him. I imagine they do the same with Ben Roethlisberger as well, that they'll wait for the Hall of Fame. And the Hall of Honor is usually announced end of July, so that's probably coming up within the next week or so.
I wouldn't even be surprised if it was tomorrow or this weekend. In fact, I would not be shocked if it was Saturday, because I seem to recall last year AR2 was there when they did.
Yeah, it's the first big day of camp.
That's what I thought, and it wouldn't shock me. So we'll see what happens there. Geez, I think we've covered everything we want to cover tonight, guys. Is Casey Kasem available? What the hell was that?
As always, Casey's available.
All right, I will turn the microphone over to the wonderful and the charismatic and the dead Mr. Casey Kasem.
Casey's Coast to Coast, American Top 40. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the week that was July 27, 1982. Our favorite correspondent, Ryan, is back with us again this week, sending his best wishes from Latrobe, Pennsylvania. And he writes, Dear Casey, well, I walk into the room passing out $100 bills, and it kills and it thrills like the horns on my Silverado grill. And I buy the bar a double round of Crown, and everybody's getting down, and this town ain't never going to be the same. Save a horse, ride Kenny Pickett. Casey, I hope you're doing well. Back here in western Pennsylvania, we're under a heat advisory, which is an alert that will never be declared because of Matt Canada's offense. I don't want to make too much out of the first training camp practice, especially one without pads, but one of the first things the offense did practice was some jet sweeps. Casey, please just put me out of my misery now. This is a tangent, but rest in peace, Randy Meisner, a founding member of the Eagles, and my favorite Eagle. The Eagles weren't the Eagles after Bernie Ledden left, and they sure as hell weren't the Eagles after Randy Meisner left. Do yourself a favor, watch the Eagles documentary, and do your best to not come to the conclusion that Glenn Fry and Don Henley were really hard to work with. Speaking of really hard to work with, let's get back to Matt Canada and see... Speaking of people that are really hard to work with, let's get back to Matt Canada and see how many Eagles references I could throw in here. I can't tell you why Matt Canada is still Steelers offensive coordinator, but he is. Hopefully, one of these nights, Canada will take it easy on us because the offense will take it to the limit early on so that we'll have a peaceful, easy feeling by halftime. Perhaps they'll put up an old 55 in the long run. However, we all know this season is going to unfold. Almost every game will go down to the wire because the Steelers offense can't score, and the Steelers defense does just enough so the offense has a chance to win the game. Casey, I don't know how much more my heart can take, but watching it all unfold is a rush. It's a habit I can't kick. Casey, it hurts so good. Well, Ryan, I totally understand what you mean. Here's John Cougar Mellencamp.
Oh.
What the hell was he back in 1982? Oh, John Cougar, right? Whatever. Up to number 3 off his album American Fool. Here's Hurts So Good.
He gets all those Eagles references in there, and then
goes Mellencamp.
Well, the Eagles weren't around in 82.
That's right. Yeah,
So
that's true. Holy shit, that's good. Oh man, good stuff, Casey. Good stuff. And is everybody here next week, or is somebody gone next week?
I'm here.
yeah, I'm gone the 10th, but the 3rd. I think we can do overtime next week.
Yeah. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm not going to promise anything because the last couple of weeks we've tried to do overtime.
Ben was a little bitch and didn't show up.
Right. And somebody's like, oh no, I forgot I got to be gone. Yeah. So I just won't say anything. And maybe, in fact, it will be next week. Maybe kind of, sort of. Because I think next week, Ian, don't you think it'd be a good week to do like predictions? We'll do our record prediction and division winners, all that a little bit later, but maybe have some fun with some more random, things like first coach to get fired and some of those types
some
of
over
things.
unders,
Yeah, absolutely.
Kenny Pickett over under 20 total touchdowns between rushing and passing, something
Or
like
10.
that.
Yeah.
Over 10, but,
Don't set the bar too high, gentlemen.
Oh, I'm teasing.
Yeah.
I'm teasing. Really, really, truly, I am.
Actually,
anyway.
I really want to watch Mark share his screen and do the immaculate grid live while he's drunk on overtime.
Okay, I better start doing this. I have not done it yet.
All right.
All right, so go ahead.
The
So,
key is if you know backup quarterbacks and kickers and punters, like, you're fine. But yeah.
Pretty
so
good at that. Are they from every era?
Yeah.
Okay.
So for those that don't know the Immaculate Grid, it is so there are 4 now. There is baseball, football, NBA, and hockey.
And that's
they're all
Pro Football Reference has these?
Yes,
Yeah.
they're all one of the references have,
right,
yes.
right.
I don't even attempt hockey. NBA is always like the last one of the day, because if I feel really shitty about my baseball and football knowledge, I'll try to do the NBA to make myself feel better. But I'm telling you this right now, the NBA and the NFL and MLB drop at 9 a.m. every morning, and that's like one of the first things I do in the morning. I wake the kid up, I feed him, burp him, get him on the play mat. He's goo goo gaga and Lady Gaga and all this shit. And I sit there and I lay with him and I do these Immaculate Grids. And I'm going to tell you this right now: if you ever want to feel inferior or superior, you need to do these, because you will overthink it. You will outsmart yourself. And then the good thing about it is that you have to get it's 9 squares and you have to get all 9 right. If you miss one, you can't be perfect. And after you either win or lose, depending on what your goals are, it tells you like the most common answer, and then it'll tell you like who played for who team or whatever. And I'm telling you right now, you will fucking drive yourself crazy. And all of a sudden you'll go to the most common answer and you'll be like, God damn it. Like, how did I not remember that Mark Sanchez played for the Eagles and Jets or something like that? And it's a lot of fun.
All right. I'm putting this at the top of my list for tomorrow morning. I will do it. I keep forgetting to do it.
So everybody out there, go to steelcityblitz.com first. And then tomorrow morning, go to immaculategrid.com first. And then
outstanding.
And then Jesse Ventura is going to go to offthegrid.com.
Oh, I wanted to do a wrestling.
Thanks for putting up with me. I'm a lot, so thank you.
It's all good. It's all good. Hey, make sure you check out the website, steelcityblitz.com. Check us out on Facebook, Instagram, the Twitters, and what's it called now? X or something? What the hell is this?
Whatever it is.
Because X gonna give it to you.
It's right. X time. And
remember when Ben and his offensive line went on the WWE Monday Night Raw? And all
yes.
Monday Night Raw.
Yes. Anyway, hey, have a wonderful week, everybody. Have a good weekend. Be safe out there. And thanks for listening to the Steel City Blitz Steelers podcast presented by Deck Roofing Incorporated of South Florida. And as always, originating from the Bradshaw Bourbon Studios. And hey, go Steelers.
Oh, hey, the Ravens suck.
Oh, there we go. Thank you for filling in.
Yeah, I left that to you, babe.
Thanks.
We are
still broadcasting.
Come on. End the show. End the show, Mr. StreamYard.
Mark, it's your job to end the show.
Oh, no. Believe me, I clicked it already. And
you know what? I'm not leaving.
No one's leaving. We're still here.
Is this how overtime happens on accidental?